Ryan Whaley. Thank you everybody for coming. Hey, I'm here to talk about roofs. I'm sure a lot of you know about the roofing situations if you are experienced in the industry, but roofing can be a major problem or it can be something that isn't a problem, hopefully. But when it comes to the roof, your roof is basically the integrity of the house. Doing a roof, replacing it is like the eye surgery of the home, is what I call it, because you don't want a cheap job, you want a quality job that's going to last a long time. A lot of contractors are known for doing sketchy things. When I do a roof for somebody, if I have to replace the whole thing, I break the roof down from tear off to replacement. I show every item, even the unnecessary stuff I do. Some people tell me that the presentation that I do for my customers is unnecessary with all the information that I give them about the roof. But basically, when you're doing a roof, there's so many things that everybody in this room, except for me, nobody's going to know if it goes on the house, except for me, if I'm the roofer, because I can put it on the house, take a picture of it, and you'll think it's there. I can pull it right back off, put the shingles down, you'll never know it wasn't there. So that's, you can make an extra $5,000-$10,000 on a big roofing job by cutting as many corners as you can. Most every roofer in the state, because there's about 20,000 roofing companies. There's only 5 roofing companies in this whole state that I would work for, period. I could work for any company, any number of companies that hire me. I have a massive network of realtors, I have a massive network of people that I work with, I have a great relationship with insurance agents. And anybody would hire me. I choose to work for OC Roofing because they're in the top 1% of all Owens Corning, which is the shingle manufacturer of the shingle products. And they actually invented fiberglass. So we're in the top 1% of all of Owens Corning's roofing contractors nationwide. And so that means when I have a contract that says on my contract that we get a 10-year leak-free guarantee on the workmanship and a 50-year manufacturer warranty on the shingles themselves, that if we go out of business, Owens or OC Roofing goes out of business next year, Owens Corning is not going out of business, and if their warranty has to come into play, they would send another platinum preferred contractor to fix any issues that would come up for 10 years. And I tell everybody that any issues that come from workmanship on a roof are going to occur within that 10-year period. If your roof starts leaking after 11 years, it's because it's been hit with 11 years worth of storms. That has nothing to do with your contractor. You go back and talk to your contractor and ask him, he's going to tell you where you can stick that piece of paper that you signed 10 years ago. But basically, like I said, I'm here for you guys. Some of you are investors, some of you are real estate agents. Everyone in here has a home. Everyone in here has a roof. If I don't earn any of your customers' business, I hope that you call me on your personal houses and get taken care of in a proper manner when it comes to the roof, because you can basically Google any roofing company in Georgia and start reading their reviews. And about 3 of them down, you'll get a 1-star review that says a horror story about how their roof was ripped off and it came a major rainstorm, or how the contractor never finished up or put the wrong color shingle. But I'm 25 years old. I've been doing this for 6 years. Plan on doing it for the rest of my life. I could go and sell houses. I could sell houses right now. I want to sell houses. I love selling roofs. It's everybody's got their thing. I sell well over $2 million worth of roofs every year, and I'd love for you guys to come and be part of my business. And I really would appreciate it if you guys come and grab a card. And I have a little bit of swag up here. I didn't have a whole bunch of swag, but he told me there was going to be like 15 people. I was like, well, okay. But thank you guys for listening to me, and thank you, Vince, for having me come up here. If anybody has any questions about roofing, off the top of my head, I'll have to answer some questions that people typically have. Is that when you're closing on a house, is the roof going to add value to the house? People say, no, the roof's not going to add value to the house. It'll sell either way. The most important thing you should know is that if your home inspector inspects a roof and says that there's some problems with the roof, even if it's just an old roof, you need to have it inspected for storm damage other than just the builder's or the home inspector's report. Because storm damage is completely different than just wear and tear and the age and the lifespan of the roof. Storm damage can be a hailstorm that came through back in 2013 and caused cosmetic damage that would never jeopardize the roof. But if you bring it up to the insurance in the right manner, you call the homeowner's insurance and you file the right claim and present it to them the right way, a $20,000 roof can be paid for through an insurance policy for $1,000 deductible, or it ranges between $500 and $10,000 deductible. But when it comes to doing the roof, the best thing you can do is have your homeowner's insurance or your customer's homeowner's insurance pay for the roof to be replaced. And another great thing for all of you people to know is that if you have a storm that impacts the roof, such as Hurricane Irma, so Hurricane Irma came through back in September 11th of 2017, and I'm still putting in claims on September 11th, 2017. 2 years later, I'm still calling the insurance, telling them I'm finding damage from September 11th, 2017. The insurance adjusters don't even bat an eye. Another good thing to know is I'm still calling in claims on Hurricane Irma, September 11th, 2017, with people who don't even have State Farm insurance that insured them in 2017. They now switched over to Nationwide in January of 2019, and we go back to the old insurance company that they were under policy with during the date of loss and get the coverage that should have been applied back when the storm occurred. So another thing I'll do for anybody, if you have a house for sale, if you pick up my card, if you want a free hail report, I'll do a free hail report for anybody. All I have to do is get the address of the house, and I have a program that costs like $1,500 a year to use, and it's through the NOAA, and I'll plug in your address in the hail program, and it will shoot out an extensive report that shows every wind event, every hail event that's ever impacted this house. And you can show your homeowner, and they'll say, wow, yeah, guess what? We're getting a roof for free for your insurance practically. We'll put that $1,000 on the asking price. Nobody bats an eye. It's a $50,000 house and they're putting a $1,000 asking price on it. Nobody's going to care. So you got a $250,000 house, $300,000 house. There's no reason to not get the insurance to put the roof on it for the deductible, if that's a possibility. Because it's just going to make the house look better. That's all it's going to do. Another thing about us is we do wood repair on the fascia, we do gutters, we do siding. If a roof is leaking on the ceiling in the interior, we can come in, we can paint it. Again, Vince, thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for listening. And please send me a question. So, a DUI's mark. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So, my name is D. Weissmark. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams. And I'll tell you my story briefly and let you ask some questions, and then we'll get back to viewing the network. So, like for many of you, I was probably 16 or 18 when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I don't remember so much from that book, but what I do remember is him talking about house flipping. And I thought to myself as I was driving, as I listened to audiobooks, and I thought, that's really clever. And that's what I want to do. And so, fast forward, here I am. So my story goes like this. I used to be a school teacher, and I wasn't very passionate. Nobody wants someone who's not passionate in their organization, especially if they are dealing with kids. So I was let go, and I had 2 kids at home, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I had a pressure washer in the garage, started pressure washing, and somebody gave me a lawnmower, and I started cutting grass. And I started working with real estate investors, and I got to know them, started asking a lot of questions, and I started counting their money, and I thought, they're buying the house for X, they're investing this much, and they're selling it for that much. I'm only getting paid $500 or $1,000, and they're making 20, 30, 50, 100,000 on a deal. I'm in the wrong business. And so I networked and I talked to a friend of mine, and he said, I'd love to partner with you. You're a hard worker, do good work, and we can be partners, but you gotta find some money to do that. So I went out and found some money, and we partnered. And we were buying houses at the courthouse steps back 9 years ago, when there were many, many more houses to buy, courthouse steps. We were buying flips, we were buying rentals on behalf of clients, and he basically taught me how he knew how to flip. Everything was going well. He decided that he wanted to move to a different venture. He basically wanted to run the brokerage side of his business, and I wanted to continue working with investors and flipping houses, and so that's what I did. I went out on my own, and we had flipped about 20 to 25, 30 properties. We bought about 30 rentals on behalf of clients, and then I was back on my own. At the time, my wife was also a school teacher, or she was only a school teacher, and she decided to stop working. She got tired of dealing with parents, with administration, and so I asked her after her last day, what is she going to do? And she said she didn't know. She'd figure it out. Just like a cat, she always lands on her feet. And so I said, why don't you join me for the day? Well, I've got some properties to see. I've got to check out a property that we're finishing today. And she said, cool. So she rode around with me, and we got to one of my houses, and they were staging the house. And so she saw the stagers, and she asked them a bunch of questions. And when we got back in the car, I said, why are you asking so many questions? And she answered me the question, of course. And she said, how much are you paying them? I told her. And she said, I know what business I want to go into. And long story short, my wife is now a home stager. She stages all of our properties. I have her cards if you're interested. That was just a shameless plug. My wife also told me, got tired of listening to me talk badly about the agents that I was working with. And she said, listen, I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear you talk about the agents anymore. Either get out of the business or get your license. And so I got my real estate license after listening to a lot of people in the wholesaling and that side of the business tell me not to go into, not to get my license, but I still wanted to, and I thought to myself, if I'm doing everything above board, honestly, ethically, there's no reason that I shouldn't get my license. And it was the best decision that I made in real estate, was to get my real estate license for many, many reasons, and I can go into that another time. I got my license 5 years ago. I've been with Keller Williams ever since, and a lot of people, especially in this world, say, well, why do you have to be with Keller Williams? Because they take too much money, and they don't give you enough. But I disagree with that, because I think that Keller Williams gives me education, gives me systems, gives me coaching, and so for me, it is more expensive than some of the discount brokers, but it is worth it. And I believe that you get what you pay for. So that was 5 years ago. Now when I buy a property, or in reality I have 4 streams of income and potentially a fifth, but 4 streams of income on every flip that I do. There's the purchase commission, there's the sales commission, there is the profit share of the actual profit of the flip, and then indirectly when my wife stages a house, I do indirectly make money that way. Can't read my own handwriting. So when I became a realtor, I really stepped up my game. My buyer perspective improved, because as I was working with buyers, because I could also represent buyers and sellers in a transaction, I started to see what buyers are looking for in when they purchase a house. So some of us think we know because we watch all the shows. Actually, I don't, because my wife won't let me, because I just yell at the TV. Because it's obvious. What you didn't know, there was mold behind the wall, the house stunk. But they're not going to tell us that. But my buyers perspective improved when I started working as a realtor, and I realized that there's really, in a house flip, there's really three people that I'm trying to impress. Trying to impress the buyer, that's really easy. Put in a new kitchen, new bathrooms, and you've impressed the buyer. When we stage a house, we're impressing the realtor, and the buyer, of course, but we're showing the house is complete and there's a cherry on top. The house looks really good, it presents well, and so I realized that impressing the buyer and the agent, the showing agent, was not difficult, but impressing the home inspector was taking it a step further. And a lot of home inspectors will kill a deal because of something that they find. And I'll give you an example. We realized on almost every flip that we were getting pushback on the insulation in the home. What's wrong with the insulation? It's matted down because it hasn't been changed in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Sometimes there is no insulation. There's full of bugs and all kinds of other nastiness in the attic. So I realized that we could impress the home inspector by vacuuming the insulation and blowing new insulation. Some of you can do that yourself. You don't want me doing that, but my contractor does that, and that costs about $1,500 to $2,000 per house. But I realized that that's a really, really good investment because it's not something that's quote unquote sexy like a kitchen or a bathroom, but it is something that gives buyers peace of mind that we didn't try to cut corners anywhere, and there's no nastiness in the attic, and the house is more energy efficient. So we impress the buyer, we impress the realtor, and we impress the home inspector, who in turn I get a report back saying, wow, the inspection went really well. The inspector was really surprised at how clean and well renovated the house is. So not only did I realize that we had to do I basically realized that we had to do everything. So now when I flip a house, almost every time we are replacing the roof, vacuuming and blowing in new insulation, new windows, new flooring, hardwood floors, open floor plan, kitchen, bathrooms, cleaning up the crawl space, putting insulation in the crawl space, putting a vapor barrier in the crawl space. These are all things, and the systems, the water heater is too cheap not to replace. If it's more than 5 years old, just put in a new one, because it costs $500 at Home Depot, and the contractor can install it, or the plumber can install it for not much money, and that goes a long way, because if you think about it, most of the buyers, they just don't have it. When they're putting 3% down, 3.5% down, they don't have the kind of money that they need if the HVAC system goes out or if the water heater goes out. Those are things that can land them in lots of credit card debt or even worst case scenario, foreclosure. So we do it all. Roof, insulation, gutters, windows, flooring, and that has gone a really, really long way. I've also learned not to buy in flood zone. That's the very, very first thing that I research. When a wholesaler or somebody sends me an off-market property, the very, very first thing I do is I look to see if it's in a flood zone. If it's not in a flood zone, I'll continue my research. If it is in a flood zone, my next question to the seller or to the wholesaler is there an elevation certificate? I want to know that the house itself is not in a flood zone. So if the lot is in a flood zone, it could be a really large lot, maybe a half-acre lot with a creek in the back. So of course the creek's going to be in a flood zone, but that doesn't mean that the house is. Or if the house sits on a hill and is really far away from that creek, then it's not a big deal. So to correct something that Vince said, I've only flipped 99 houses. I'm in the process of flipping 3 houses right now. So I'm up to 99. My goal was to buy my 100th by the end of June. That didn't happen. because I was dealing with some larger scale renovations. But I am on 99 and I'm looking for number 100. So if any of you are wholesalers and want to sell me a really good property, I'd love to buy it. So far I've done flips in Middle Tennessee. I grew up in Nashville, so I went back there. And after doing well on a few new constructions over there, building a duplex, and failing very miserably on a flip, I decided I don't need to go anywhere but Atlanta, because this is where I live. There are 6 million people in Metro Atlanta. If you go even more on the outskirts, it's 10 million people. There's enough houses for all of us to find properties, to wholesale, to flip, to buy rentals, etc. I do help my clients acquire rentals. About 80% of my real estate license business is working with investors, including my own flips. I have clients from all over the world, and I do go visit them. I go at least once a year overseas to visit my clients. They need to see me and feel that I'm doing a good job and that I still exist. We do purchase rentals for them. And I think that's all I have. And so what I'd like to do is, what I'd like to do is just see if anybody has any questions. Yes.
Do you have like an average price point that you work in?
That's a great question. So the question, for those in the back that can't hear, is there an average price point? I stay under 500,000 ARV. And the reason for that is the statistics show, at least they have been showing, it's changing a little bit now, but for the most part, under 500,000 is what people can afford. And that's still a seller's market. Above 500,000, according to the stats, it's a buyer's market. And so I don't really want to get stuck on a $700,000 house that I have to keep lowering the price or wait 100 days, 150 days, 200 days. We look at the stats, that's what they're showing us. That some of those houses are sitting for a long time. It has nothing to do with buyers who just figure in that price point, the 5 to 750 or the all over, yeah. And I will go all over it, yeah. Anywhere. My little joke is I have 3 kids and they're hungry, and they're not hungry. They like to eat, and so I will go anywhere to flip a house. Last year we did Canton, Palmetto, Woodstock, Snellville. We were all over the place. So
Mostly North End though? Or?
no, love South, Southwest. Not a huge fan of the West Side, but that's just my own bias. I live in DeKalb, so that's where I prefer to invest.
Thank you.
Alright, so I don't know if this is going to work.
Can you, oh, God, it does work. All right, so I just want to ask you a couple questions. There were a few people that texted me and emailed me throughout the week and said, I would like to ask you about this if I get to talk to him. And so there's just a couple of prompts that I kind of want to bring up and see if I can ask you a few things. So the first one is, can you talk about with that first flip, how did you, I'm trying to get rid of the static. Were you nervous? You don't hear it?
No.
All right, maybe I'm just schizophrenic.
Your brain.
None of you guys hear static?
No.
You want me to talk about my first
Right,
flip?
yeah. Let's talk about your first flip. All right, so let's talk about how you found it and, what was your thought process as you started working on it? Were you nervous? Were you scared you were going to mess something up? How did you find those contractors and what did the numbers look like on your first flip?
I had no clue what I was doing. So I was partnered with an experienced flipper. At the time, he'd done maybe 50, 60 flips, either partnered or with, on his own. We bought a little house in Stone Mountain. It was the crappiest house on the block, and as we drove around after we had purchased it, we were like, okay, we purchased the worst house on the block, and we're gonna make it the nicest. And so we're like, we're on the right track. And I think we bought it for, at the time, you could buy in Stone Mountain for $28,000, $30,000. We put about $20,000 into it, and we sold it for $65,000, I think. The return wasn't great, But
it got you in the game, and I'm guessing what you learned from that flip applied to all the ones that you did in the future, and it made those future flips possible.
yes, absolutely.
And then, how are you finding your deals currently? I think a lot of people are looking to do flipping as well. How would you encourage those newer people here? Just show of hands real quick. How many of you have not done a flip before, and you're looking to do your first one at some point in the future? That's a lot of hands. Okay, so a lot of you have not done a flip yet and want to. So, Adi, what would your advice be for those newer investors that maybe they're saving up money, they're learning, they're reading, they're trying to find or do that first flip? What advice would you give to them in terms of how they can get started, and what would the right actions be to kind of get into the game?
Great question. I would partner with somebody who has experience. So there are lots and lots of people who flip houses, both here in Atlanta and all over the Southeast. And so I would partner with those just like I did. I don't think that I would change my course of action at all, because even though I don't do things the way I did, I don't do things the way I was taught, I still learned a lot from my partner, and now it's the point where we're still good friends. We just moved our separate ways, and we still learn from each other. I think he learns a lot more from me because I moved to a different price point that forced me to do everything. He's still in a lower price point and trying to get by with the older roof or the older insulation, that type of thing. So I think that partnering is a good idea. Wholesaling, possibly. Actually getting a property under contract, not daisy chaining, but getting a property under contract with the seller and then selling it to somebody, maybe making less, or at least watching the flip happen.
Right, so there's several different ways that you can get in and start to get that experience, and you don't have to do it all by yourself. And what I hear from a lot of people is that they are saving up, and that can be really hard to do if you think about it. If you're trying to flip a house and a hard money lender is only willing to lend you 65% of the ARV, and you've got to come up with $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, maybe more to get started, there are other ways that you can get started by bringing someone else in. And even if you only make half of the profit or less, there's something to be said for doing that first flip, getting the experience, knowing what things to look out for. And even if you make a little bit less money on it, 30% of a flip and all the experience that comes with it is better than 100% of waiting until you're actually ready.
Right. I worked with some clients for a year and a half. We placed all kinds of offers. They were very unrealistic. And after a year and a half, they still hadn't bought anything because they were waiting for that right opportunity.
It's really getting stuck in analysis paralysis.
Right. Something else that people don't understand about working with either private money or hard money is, okay, if I need a down payment and I actually acquire the property, so I've done that, but how am I going to pay the contractor? Because we have to do the work first, then show, let's say, the hard money lender what we've done. So let's say I put on a new roof and it costs $8,500. Now I can call the lender and say, I have a new roof, cut me a check for $8,500. So they don't understand, the roofer is not just going to loan them $8,500. I write my contractor, because I've been working with him for 5-6 years now. I write him a check for $20,000 to get started on the job. Who's going to give me that money? Nobody. Once he does the work, then I can call my lender, if I'm working with a lender, and say, we've done X, Y, and Z, we need reimbursement.
So you're getting it in draws, you're getting it
Right, exactly. Usually we do 3-4 draws. So let's say we do the demo and the trash out and new hardwoods and framing and electrical and plumbing rough. Only then somebody's got to pay for that. Only then can I call my lender and say, hey, we've done the plumbing rough, the electrical rough, the demo, the clean out, a new roof. Now can you write me a check for $15,000? And I get that money and I turn around and give it right back to my contractor. I'll only get my investment back or buy that $20,000 down payment to the contractor or whatever I said at the end.
Okay, and then I think one other thing too, Adi, I know you really well, I know your story. Something that kind of got you started is something that I see with a lot of people, and massive action, really making something change in your life, whether it's in real estate, your personal life, your fitness, your finances, your family, your relationships, whatever it is, I see that big changes happen in people's lives from one of two things. It's either inspiration or desperation. It's a lot easier when it's inspiration. But I remember
I've had both. Haven't we all?
Yes, we've all had that. I remember you talking about how you were a school teacher, and it sounds like you really were fed up. And then when you were starting to do some small work yourself, getting paid by the job, by the hour, you wanted more. And it was that frustration with your circumstances that made you say, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm going to make something happen, and I'm going to do something about it. And this ties back to something that I heard Gary Keller talking about last week that I want to mention. A lot of people think that success either is like this, and when it doesn't go like that and they have that dip, they get really discouraged and they quit, or they think it's like this, and it's like this weird line chart of up and down, and really it's, yes, there's ups and downs, but it's more sloped like this. And those early stages, it looks almost flat,
Just like when you're looking.
just like when you're looking at compound interest on a graph over time. And that was the case for me too personally, where my first 2 or 3 years learning about real estate, I really didn't do anything. I didn't make any money, I was just learning, I wasn't really getting anywhere. And it was finally when I dove in, immersed myself in this exact meetup actually, and started meeting other people and learning from them, and started doing things. I started driving for dollars. I built a list of 2,000 houses driving for dollars. And when I started to do things like that, opportunities started to find me, and I started to learn by default because I was having to learn because I was doing things. And when you were on that first flip, and on those first couple, that's probably where you learn the most.
I'd actually say that fast forward 2 years later, when everybody was making big money, I lost on 3 flips. One of those reasons was because I bought in a major flood zone. It was so bad that the carpet was growing mushrooms from having so much wetness. If you've never had that experience, I hope you never have it, but walking into a house, it just stunk. There were nasty mushrooms growing on the carpet because the ground was so wet, and I thought I'd never get rid of that house.
So were you having to also factor in additional costs to pay your landscaper to mow your living room?
No, I just sold the mushrooms to some kids down the street. Just kidding.
Did you make more money from that or the flip itself?
Yeah, I lost my tail on that flip, but I learned. And so at every house, every scenario, every client, I learned something. I mean, that's the way life is. If you don't learn something, I read a book, The Slight Edge. And in that slight edge, talks about the world is curved, that there's no straight lines, and he thinks that there's 5% of the world's population is trying to learn and grow on a daily basis. The rest are on the other side of the curve. That was revolutionary for me, and I thought, well, I know I'm in that 5% because I'm always trying to learn and grow. I put my head on the pillow at night and I think to myself, did I do a good job today for my family? Did I do a good job for myself? What did I learn? How am I growing? And how do I want to be better tomorrow? And that's that 5%. We always have to learn and grow.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be the next thing I was going to bring up, was actually being learning-based. Being learning-based is something that I think all of us here have, and I know that because you guys wouldn't be here if you weren't learning-based. I can tell you so many people I know that would never come to a meetup like this because they think it takes too long to learn, they think it's too hard, they don't want to get started, and the secret to getting ahead is getting started. You have to start somewhere, and just not being embarrassed about starting from zero is so important. And you deserve a pat on the back, everybody does, just for being here and for taking those steps to get the ball moving a little bit. And even if you don't see that progress every day, it is happening whether you see it or not.
Definitely. I'm always trying to learn and grow. One thing that a lot of us work in our cars a lot. So there's just download audiobooks. Either get an Audible account, I don't know how much it costs, like 10, 12, 15 bucks a month. That's a great way. You can get free books from the library. You can download them to your phone. Always be learning things. That's the very start.
That's fantastic. And I think that I really started to pick up on this more when I started at Keller Williams. I work with the dean at Keller Williams, and that's how I know him. The whole culture is being learning based, and that's such a big part of it. And the people that I've seen both inside Keller Williams and just outside of it in real estate investing, the ones who really succeed at a high level, the ones who are on the Bigger Pockets podcast, for years I wondered, what was it that got them to where they are? How did Ziona McIntyre go from broke to financial independence with Airbnbs that she didn't even own in a couple of years? How did Scott Trench become the CEO of Bigger Pockets by the time he was 30, taking over for Josh Dorkin? How did these people do this? How did David Green and Ben Keeney become who they are? And that's really what it was. It was personal development. And all of these people have one thing in common. They read a lot of books, whether that's on Audible or reading a paperback, it doesn't matter. But being a continuous learner and learning every single day, one book on Audible you can listen to in 4 or 5 hours. You knock out one per month. In 3 years, that's 36 books. Just imagine the kind of person that you're going to become.
I listen at 1 1/4 speed or 1 1/2 speed.
I'm not there yet, so that's great though. So we'll do a couple questions from you guys. So put your hands up. I'll hand you guys the mic, and let's get a couple questions in.
Hello. How do you analyze the deal? Like, when will you pass on one or when will you take a deal? That's real numbers now.
So before you even go to the house, hopefully there's photos, and I've done enough that I can give or take estimate, and see if a project is in has potential. The way I do things, I take off 8% of the AR. So I run the comps, find out the ARV, take off 8%. Then I take off the 20% that I want to make on a deal. Anywhere between 15 and 20% is what I want to take home for the project profit. Then I have my all-in number. And so if my all-in number is 150, I don't really care if I buy it for 100 and renovate for 50, or if I buy for 50 and renovate for 100. It's the same thing. As long as I stay at 150, whatever that number is. Then I have to go to the house with my contractor, get a formal estimate. So if I say the reno is 60,000, the contractor comes back at 85, that just killed the deal. But if I say it's 75, he says, it's about 80,000, so maybe I can get it down a little bit. Maybe we can figure out ways to make the renovation a little bit cheaper. But that way, at least I just work my way backwards from the ARV and insert my numbers. Some people have other formulas. That's just a formula that I work off of. And I can share that with you more after if you want.
All right, we're going to do 3 more questions, and then we're going to have one more small little segment where we're going to have somebody come up and share a story who's done their first deal recently through the meetup. It would be awesome to hear about, or at least if that's how you got started. So 3 more questions, and then we'll get to that, and then you guys will get to talk a little bit. If you've had more than 7 drinks by now, cheers. It's the bartender drinking on the job. All right, who's got questions? 3 more. Don't be shy. Anybody?
Hi, Dave. Besides the flood insurance or flood zone that you were saying, were there any other things that you would do to quickly eliminate a property or deal when you're looking at it?
Yes. When people ask me and they say, what are your criteria? No flood zone, no main roads, under $500,000 ARV. So the main road, somebody presented a property today. It was a little bit borderline. Once I took off the 10, 20, 30,000, but I just did 10,000 and it killed the deal. I took off 10 for being on the main road, and I was like, it just doesn't work anymore. So those are my criteria. Everybody sort of has their own. I'm assuming that if he gave me the property for 30,000 less, I might have considered it a little bit more, but once I saw it was on a main road, I was like, sorry, thanks anyway.
All right, 2 more questions. All right, over here. Wait, sorry, but before your question, real quick, I got a notification here that if you have a white Jeep and your license plate number is CID 4459, you're blocking somebody in. So if you own that white Jeep and your license plate number is CID 4459, can you please move it real quick and then you can come back?
And sorry, I think I know the answer to the question, but I just want a little clarification. So at first, you were contemplating getting your license, and so what would you say? Getting that license. What is the benefit? I think I know what it is, but I just being at that point where I've thought about it, but haven't done it for probably the same reasons that you did it, and I'm sure others here are in that boat. But what would you say the benefit? I know you talked about it earlier, the education. And I think it gives you more streams of income. If you could just surmise it, I guess I'm asking you to surmise it again, but if you could surmise that for me, I just want to know, you talked about Keller Williams and the education aspect, but on the deal, and does it make it more expedient of a process? Does it give you more options when someone brings you a deal? Things of that nature is what I was wondering,
So I could go on and on why I think it's a good idea. I could run my own comps. I didn't have to borrow somebody else's MLS login. So I could run my own comps. I could keep my own records. I feel like people took me a little bit more seriously than I was a realtor. Definitely the commission aspect. I can make commission on the front end, especially if it's listed on the MLS. I'm the one that wants the offer. I was going to agents and saying, hey, can you place an offer for this house? Well, what I could have done it, by the time I emailed them, I could have written the offer myself and made if it's a $100,000 property, 3%. And that's $3,000 that I was just throwing out. Then on the back end, if I'm selling it for 200, that's another $6,000. That's gotta be paid. And even when I work with investors and they say, well, are you listing the property or are you hiring a realtor? I say, I am a realtor, and yes, I am listing it. And that commission is non-negotiable, unless there's some other reason. But for the most part, if you want me to list your house, the commission is non-negotiable, because I'm going to work my butt off to get you to the closing table and make money. To give you an example, last week, I had to fight with an appraiser to get the price to be $210. And we got it, and instead of selling for $200, my client sold it for $210, so I made her an extra $10,000. Was she happy to pay my 3% commission, $6,000? And yes, she was. She just made $10,000 more. So that's definitely it helps me understand the paperwork better, the attorneys, just every step of the way gets a little bit easier, a little bit more educated. Other people might tell you, no, you don't need your license. I think it's a really important step because I believe in education. I believe in knowing all of the steps and having some credibility also, especially when dealing with attorneys. Because the wholesalers, I don't think whether I agree or disagree with this, I think that attorneys are not treating them with as much respect as they would in realtor.
All right, 2 final questions. Shazar is first, and then you'll be the last one.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out tonight and sharing. Just wanted to know your thoughts on these professional mentorship programs that you see advertising all the time. They range from $4,000 to $40,000. What are your thoughts on that?
You think I'd say this in the nicest way possible. I'm not a fan. I think that they are. I think that the people that are selling those seminars and weekends and all of that, are great salespeople. I don't think that they educate people on what it takes to do a deal on a daily basis. Again, it's not to say that all of them are bad, some of them are better than others, but I've had to correct a lot of, I don't know if correct is the right word, but I've had to coach people along the way. They said, but in my class I learned it like this. It's like, yeah, but your class is not the real world. It's kind of the same as a language. When you learn a language, you're learning very formal. Go out on the street, it's like in Good Morning Vietnam, right? Robin Williams, you're not asking for bread and cheese, he's like, hey man, how you doing? So that's really, it's what's happening on the street and in the house that people are just not expecting some of the things that they see. They're not being taught that. Maybe they don't have enough time, maybe the course is not good. I think that if you're going to pay that kind of money, then partner with somebody to make less on a deal, even if you make less on 5 deals. If you get $5,000 less on 5 deals, that's $25,000. One that it's not that you lost it, and it's not that you paid it out. You've learned something for that, and you still make money. So partnering with a more seasoned investor, there's a lot of investors that need help. If they're flipping 3, 4, 5 houses in a month or in a time, they need your help. They can't get to those properties all the time and manage the ones that they're selling and manage all the contractors. They need a sidekick, or they need an assistant. And if you could be that assistant and have a value proposition, hey, I will get my hands dirty, I'll go to the properties, I'll learn, I'll stay up late, I'll wake up early, whatever, that's worth more than the actual programs, in my opinion.
All right, last question here from Maddie Jackson. Patty Jackson. I said Patty as a speaker.
One of the, I guess, the challenges of getting started is not having the resources. And so I kind of wondered if, like when you started, did you immediately hire out all the work contractors? Or did you, kind of do a lot of the work yourself and then slowly kind of bring in the resources? And how did you find those resources? I mean, just as an agent, I struggle finding like really great contractors for my clients. It's a revolving door. Like one's great, and a year later they're not great. They're off the list, and they're embarrassing.
Yeah, at the beginning, I had a punch list. We would go to the house. The first thing we would say, okay, we're going to change this light fixture, and we're going to paint this wall, and we're going to change out this cabinet. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and just go through the list. And I got to call the plumber, and I got to make sure that he's got all the process he needs, and the electrician all the light fixtures that he needs. And I got tired of doing that. One, because I was growing and I had too many to do that for. And I'm not good at that. So I eventually hired a contractor, and now the contractor does all of that. So some people might say, well, what do you need to pay a contractor for? But if you think about it this way, that if I call an electrician and the electrician says, sure, I'll change out the panel for $2,000 or $2,500, he might charge the contractor $1,800 or $2,000. So the contractor, he's got to make his money somewhere, but I'll get the same price that I would if I were to call. And then somebody else is doing that work for me. So I might make a little bit less, I might make a little bit more, because the contractor is then responsible for certain things that he should have quoted. And my contractor will come to me and say, I found this. And I say, well, you should have seen that. You should have known that X, Y, Z. Now he doesn't come to me with those anymore, because he just fixes it and sucks it up. If there's really a problem, then he'll tell me and we'll adjust the price. But for the most part, I think that a good contractor will save you money as opposed to costing you money. And I just learned that after 3, 4, 5 years. I got tired of walking around with a clipboard and punch lists and photos and all that. Just pay a contractor, let him do what he does best, and I'll do what I do best. And that's finding the houses, so keeping him in business, and I will have more jobs.
What about loyalty?
Exactly. Now my contractor works only for me, and I've been working with him for close to 6 years. His boss is in jail, or his former boss, because I was hiring him as a contractor, and he was taking our money. So I've been in both positions, but now my contractor is like a brother.
I got one question for you. So if you didn't use the contractor, how would you vet the individual workers? So you had an electrician, you had a plumber. How would you vet them if you didn't have a GC?
So some of them came recommended from others. So, I might post to a group like this and say, hey, I need an electrician in Lawrenceville, who's got one? And so you might say, hey, I got a great one. I'm looking for a plumber in Southwest Atlanta. Oh, I've got a great one. And so just networking like that to find really good people. And hey man, I failed a lot. I wrote a lot of checks that the work never got done at home. But that's just part of the process.
But a huge thank you and a huge warm round of applause for Dee. Thank you so much. If you've done your first real estate deal, wholesale flip, buying a rental property in the last 30 days, raise your hand. I just want to see how many people recently have gotten their first deal done. All right, would you come up here for a second? I'm not going to put you on the spot or I'm not going to put you on the spot or anything, but here's a microphone and here's 150 people. So you started coming to this meetup a few months ago, and you were brand new, a little bit shy, just getting your feet wet. How did you do this first deal, and what did it look like?
Yeah. So I started self-learning, bigger pockets, and took me a while to find it. Then I found it, I started coming. And at the same time I was talking with my previous realtor when I bought my own house, and I talked to her about getting into real estate investment. So she said, for you, because you're just in the beginning, maybe I'll just hook you with a wholesaler. He will help you find a house. So I didn't know what a wholesaler is. So I started learning and educating myself. I got in touch with a wholesaler she recommended. He started showing me some houses. Then, he knew it's my first one. So I told him, look, it's gonna be good, I'll come back. And he found a house. I ran the numbers, I called some realtors, was looking at the exit numbers, in the market. I knew it's not going to be fancy. But I said I have to take action, I have to jump in. And I started to interview some GCs. And I wanted to do an open floor plan. I didn't want to do just, paint and basic things. I wanted to do a little bit more moderate rehab. So I wanted to open a floor plan, and I figured I probably need everything needs to be permitted. And a few GCs, when I told them it needs to be permitted, they just disappeared. So that was a good sign. And then through one of the guys here in the meetup, actually, I started to talk to him. He said, hey, I've got a GC, I just finished a project. And next day, we went to see the house that he finished. And I got in touch with his GC. And I liked what he told me. I've seen some of his houses. And we started working. It was a big mistake. Just because I didn't have the experience. Maybe I just pressured him too much for the price. Maybe it was just, he really needed the money. But what ended up to be around the 60,000 rehab ended up more than 110. And in the middle, he decided to bail out because he figured out he brought too cheap of people to do the plumbing, framing, electricity, paint. So those people just kind of suddenly disappeared. And then I called you, if you remember. I was looking, I need a plumber because we passed rough plumbing, but I need to finish. We passed rough electric, I need to do finish. So, long story short, the finished product is now for sale, based on my standards, because I didn't like what I see. it's it took more time. I started in January, and here we are, and it took more money. But I'm happy with what I've got right now, and I definitely learned a lot. So
That's awesome.